Hey guys, we are going to be talking to Stephanie Bond today. So I'm just here waiting on her. Wanted to get here early so she is not waiting on me. We should be starting in about 5 minutes or under. I can't wait for her to get here. This will be her first time, so this is a big deal. And if she's a little late in getting here, don't leave. She's coming. I'm just writing out all my questions, finishing my questions that I have. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining. You are looking so good, lady, and you are doing it. I'm like on the sidelines clapping, just so you know. Okay, so I'm really excited about Stephanie. Okay, hey, Brittany, how are you doing? Beautiful believer, you look great. Lisa, yeah, honestly, I want to hear more. I was actually going to reach out to you because I also want to interview you, young lady. It looks like you just left your career, your old career, and are doing what you are full time. So I want to learn more about that. Yeah, so Stephanie should be joining when she gets here. Oh, when she gets here, we are going to invite her over. And yeah, and this will be recorded as well, so you'll be able to look at it later. What up, Sam? How you doing, girl? I can't wait to talk to you too. Yeah, I love that fact that I'm just like in my den and I'm all dressed up like I was going somewhere, but I'm not. I love it. I'm like, get dressed up, show them, but you could actually be in your den like feet from pajamas and husbands and children and stuff. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I cannot wait for you to hear her. I mean, Stephanie's story is remarkable. It's shocking. It's shocking. It is sobering. There's so many things that will, but you know, my intention always is not just to bring you a shocking story so that you're like, man, that was shocking. My intention is for us to hear the shocking bits and the broken bits and the fracturedness of all of our lives, and to hear how do people pick up the pieces and create something beautiful. Because I feel like it's incumbent upon us to create something beautiful with our lives. Hey, Chris. But we will never have all of the pieces that we think one needs to create a gorgeous, powerful, impactful life. We will have tattered pieces that are like stale, broken, fractured, pieces that just don't look good in the separate of them, but in the aggregate, they create something amazing. And so that's what I want us to extrapolate from Stephanie's story today. I can't wait till she gets here. Hello. Widow Not Alone. Hi. The moment she gets here, I will invite her. So she's only like 1 minute behind. I told her how to do this, so let's just be patient with her. I said, hey, I'll be on live. All you have to do is see my name, click on me, and you'll come to the page. Once she's here in this space with us, oh, good to see you too. Once she's in this space with us, we'll be able to have her join. So how's everybody doing right now during this time period of lockdown, of being at home? I heard Gary... what was his name is Gary Owen, and he is a funny comedian, and he was saying he heard a quote today and it really resonated with him, and it said that you're not locked down, you know, you're not quarantined at home, you are staying safe. Catherine from New York. Hey, Catherine. Thank you. Laura Grace. Great. Thank you guys for coming here. Stephanie should be here shortly. I may have to go find her. I had to go do this with Brother Richard too. When you're new to this process, it seems a little strange. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. No, she's not there yet. But, yeah. So what are some of you guys doing with your everyday? I want to see some answers. Catherine, what are you doing in New York? staying home, which is a good thing. Saving lives and staying home. That is a good thing. Yeah. Has anybody, so my husband and I were talking the other day, isolating, which is, it's smart, you know, honestly, that's what we're doing. We're isolating. But what is so amazing is we get to really invest and be with each other right now. So it's like, yeah, we don't have the other things that distract us. We actually get to just dive into community and relationships with people, get to know people's stories, who they are, where they are, and how we can support them. Teaching your kids and trying not to fight with your husband. I hear you, girl. I literally told my daughter yesterday, I was like, hey, you know, mommy is not following up with you. So are you doing your homework? I hope you are. She's in 7th grade, because I'm like, I'm not doing, she has it all online. And so thank the Lord, because if I had to homeschool, it would not be a pretty story. It would be like 1 + 1 is 2. Good job. Good job for you. Spending time with our little ones and trying to enjoy the sunshine when it's out. For real. Loving to chill. Isn't that good, Chris? No stress, no schedule. I love it too. Have the beautiful outdoors. Yeah, I just went running in Florida. So lots of dog walking. Okay, Stephanie, she said she's here. I don't see her yet, though. Hold on. Stephanie. No, hold on, y'all. I got to go get her. Okay. Okay. Widow sent a request to be in your live. Is that you, Widow? Stephanie, that's not you, though. Okay, so I'm logged into Instagram. Okay. Okay, Stephanie. Oh, listen. Stephanie, this is her first time, you guys. So, John, John Swindler, Beaufort, South Carolina, Stephanie's first cousin. Hey, and you're a hospice chaplain. Well, welcome. Okay, you might need to help me get your cousin over here, John Swindler, because I cannot, she thinks she says she's on Instagram, but I don't see her here. So help me. What she needs to do is just get on Instagram, see my name, click on my face, and it will let me know that she's joined. So if you could help me get her here, I would appreciate it. There she is. There she is, you guys. Our star is here.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
I can't get it on my laptop, but I'm technically challenged.
Oh,
so.
you are on your laptop.
I was, but now I'm on my phone. So we're
yeah.
good.
So Instagram's one of those things that it has less capabilities on the laptop. It's really an app. It's supposed to be used on your phone.
Okay, so all right, that's good, because
I should have told you that. I just
right,
assumed that you'd be on your phone.
Camera on my laptop. I can set this thing up, and we're good.
Okay.
I'm like, where is it?
Good. Do you have your camera someplace where you can put it steady?
Yes, I do, and we'll take care of that. I'm like,
yeah, just so that you don't have to hold it during the whole time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Hold on here.
There we go. You look good. Look at that blonde hair. Yeah, just for a second.
Okay, there, we're back. Hi.
Okay. Hey,
Hi,
Stephanie. How you doing, girl?
I am good. You know, all of the new challenges with all this self-imposed quarantine, like
right?
this kind of stuff, right?
I'm turning up the volume so I can hear you really well.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, you look great. Thank you so much for joining. You've had quite a few people showing up. Your first cousin, I sent your first cousin looking after you. Chris Swindler.
Who?
Chris Swindler. That was the name.
John. John and
Oh,
Jen.
okay. Well, I just looked at, I was like, hey, the person said that they were your first cousin. I was like, can you go find your first cousin? Please help me find her.
Yeah, no, I get it. Because I'm like, yeah. Anyhow, good. We got
No, well, good
technical
morning.
difficulty figured out. Hi.
So where
How
are
ya?
you, Stephanie?
I am in Dallas.
Dallas,
The
Texas.
northern suburb of Dallas, yes.
Nice. How's the weather there today? What is today looking like for you?
It is gloomy. It is
Gloomy.
gray. It's going to be about 60 degrees. And
Okay.
yeah, nice sweats, coffee, stay in bed, read a book kind of day. If only I could do that. But about several days ago, it was like 90, and over the weekend it was beautiful. So you never know what you're going to get right now.
Yeah, no, the reason why weather's like this super surfacey topic, like when you don't have anything else to talk about. But now that we're like locked down at home, we're like, how's that weather? Did you go for a walk? Did you see that sun? What about that sky?
I try to walk every day. Last night it was rainy, and I got my 2 kids to walk with me, even in the drizzle, just so we could get out, which is good. So that's one of the things that I try to implement.
Yes.
So.
Okay, Stephanie, I'm about to just dive into some of these questions so that the world gets to know who you are and bits of your story. So I did already tee up the audience, and I said, look, we know that this is a deep story because just in the short little bio from what I put up there, we kind of understand the major tragedy that has befallen you. Right. But we're going to unpack that today. But I was like, this is not a time to just go, oh my God, look at this horrible thing that happened to this woman. Yeah. We always have to come, at least how I approach things, I move to it from the intention of what can we extrapolate from this that is beautiful? How do we extrapolate something that is a powerful narrative despite this? Because the truth is, hopefully none of us ever have to experience what you experienced. Right. But the truth is, all of us will have these very broken, fractured, disparate, rusty pieces of our lives that we will have to create something beautiful with. The idea, the unction is we will have is that we want all these beautiful pieces to make a beautiful whole. But the truth is we have very ugly, broken pieces that ends up making a beautiful whole. So that is the intention from which I move and asking you the questions that I will ask you right now. So just jumping into it. So from the bio, everybody kind of knows what the big tragedy, but I would love for you to start telling us about the day before this tragedy. Can you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I can tell you, but actually I will go back a little further because I think it all kind of gives context to it. My husband and I were married for 22 years. We had 4 children and a family business. We were arguably one of the largest, probably one of the top 5 largest real estate companies in Champaign, Illinois. And that we were owner manager of student housing. So we rented to, I think our rent roll was over like 1,000 students. We built this business together. Wow. From, I think our first building we purchased in spring of '89 when I was a junior in accounting at University of Illinois. Wow. So we grew the business. We had 4 children. About 8 years, actually I was pregnant with our 3rd child. My husband started having some depression and anxiety issues, and he was hospitalized voluntarily for depression.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Pause real quick. What did his anxiety and depression issue, how did it manifest? What did that look like at that time?
For me, it was pretty much onset. My father had been really ill and had been in the hospital in St. Louis for about a month with some heart-related issues. So I was 5-6 months pregnant with our 3rd son at the time. And I had been spending, balancing time between my parents and my husband and my 2 younger boys as well. And our business was growing. And I think Gabe had been very private about his issues. He'd never really shared those with me. And so when he sat me down at the kitchen table, I was like, okay, well, we're in this together. We're going to fix it. We're going to get you the help you need. If you need to go to the hospital, we'll take care of it.
So he sat you down and told you some of the things he was feeling?
Right. And he just sat me down and we had this conversation. you know, he had always been fairly introverted, fairly, I mean, he had a very gregarious personality, but he was very, he was very intellectual. He was very academic. So he would retreat a lot, and he was an avid reader, wicked smart. So there wasn't really an unusual behavior pattern from what I saw.
Okay.
He just, and I said, okay, well, you know, let's fix it. Let's take care of it. So that was 2000. Then I would say they closed the psychiatric department from where he was being treated, you know, after his hospitalization. And he started seeing a new provider, a new mental health care provider. And just, I'm going to fast forward through this. Over the course of 8.5 years, he was on about every med you could imagine. And at the time of his death, he was on Abilify, Lamictal, Lexapro, Klonopin, and Cymbalta.
Five
at the same time. Plus, he was able to, he had been prescribed Effexor, Zoloft, Prozac, Ritalin, Risperdal. I mean, there were so many meds in his system over the course of 8.5 years that it, in my opinion, seriously altered his brain chemistry and his just who he was as a person. So,
was he interacting with you differently during that time?
And this is one of the things that I say in the mental health community. I mean, it's a serious issue, but I'll tell you, in almost everybody I've interacted with and the work that I've done in sharing my story, the mental health care provider, there's very little support for them. We have a lot of awareness. We got so much awareness. We don't even know what to do with all the awareness that we have. But we are aware. We are aware. You're aware of the problem. But where there is a disconnect is the support and the help system and the caregiver. And especially when you're dealing with mental health, you've got such high boundaries, thanks to HIPAA, that the caregiver is not in the conversation with respect to what is really happening with the patient.
That is so true.
For example, my husband would go to his therapist, and we were in Illinois. So let me back up a minute. The person that was treating him was, I think her designation was APN. The doctor, she was a nurse practitioner. She was his therapist. She prescribed the medicine. And when he was referred to her, he was told this was one-stop shopping like Super Walmart.
Okay. Which is a great analogy. No, it's not. But anyway.
It's a horrible situation.
Yeah.
And the doctor that was overseeing this nurse practitioner was my husband here. And then there was a third person in this practice that was the nurse practitioner. It was a third person, independent person for a while, and then later became the nurse practitioner's daughter. And the name of their practice was called the private practice. So you got 3 people there treating somebody who's really sick,
right?
Meds at him,
and you're not a part of that conversation at all.
And I'm totally out of the loop. And so when you have
aren't there isn't there paperwork or something that one can sign to say, hey, like, so I go to a therapist,
right? Yeah.
And I make sure that they know that they can share my information with my husband. Could he have done that?
He did for a while, and without going down that rabbit hole, he did. And then there was a hospitalization that was involuntary, and it was pretty ugly. And from that point on, they quit sharing with me. And but to that point, if my husband was, which actually happened, say my wife did this, my wife did that, you know, she's turned the kids against me, she spent all my money, she's treating me like this, and it's not true.
It's not corroborated. They don't even go through the places and the steps.
There are no checks and balances. He said, my mother did this, my brother did this, everybody, the world is against me. And they would treat him. They were also cash pay at $270 an hour.
Right.
And he would.
They had a financial benefit from keeping him sick, if you will.
And then when I finally received got his records, which, by the way, after his passing, I was the executor of the estate and had to get a judge's order to get those records. And we had a court battle to get those.
Wow.
Yeah. Because again, they hid behind HIPAA. Every other doctor, everybody else freely turned those over. But we had to get a court order because they were hiding behind HIPAA.
Oh.
But I discovered that he was going there sometimes 2 and 3 times a week. So $270 an hour.
Right.
Getting all the meds that you want, pretty much. Coming home with like gift bags, like with samples in them.
Right, right.
You know, there was no incentive for him to get the true help that he needed.
Right.
And my hands were tied as the caregiver. And so
I'm sorry.
over the last 8.5 years of our marriage, I would say his illness escalated. And
you were aware of the escalation. You could see it in his day to day.
I was the brunt of it.
When you say you were the brunt of it, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I started to originally say is I think that there's most caregivers are the victim of some sort of abuse, whether it's physical. I mean, you're dealing with somebody whose mental capacity is compromised, and there's a tendency to lash out. So that I got the brunt of it. I was the person that, you know, it was screamed at, yelled at, meanwhile trying to keep it together, trying to keep our family business together. At the end of his death, I mean,
because everybody here may not know this, you have children at this stage, and how many
4.
children do you have?
By the time he died, we had 4, and at the time of his death, they were between the ages of 6 and 16.
Wow.
So his behavior was ugly, and it was unmanageable. It was erratic, and it finally got to the point about 3 months before he died that I couldn't. It was just so unhealthy for all of us. So
were you scared of him?
I never thought he'd hurt me. Like I was uncomfortable, and I was scared of what the day would bring, as far as his temper and the volatility that might, you know, fear of what might unfold. But I don't know that I was ever really afraid that he would do what he did. That really didn't. There might have been fleeting moments of fear.
Yeah.
He had 3 suicidal attempts in the past, at least 3.
Okay.
So I kind of come to the terms with, I can't fix this, and I can't protect him from himself. He's probably going to commit suicide at some point.
You did. You'd kind of.
We kind of just had to
resigned yourself to that truth.
It was going to happen.
Okay.
But
that's horrible. I just want to say pause. That is a horrible piece of information that you had to sit with and know and fear. I'm sorry that you had to sit there with that.
Thank you. And I think it was hard on my kids. You know, I grew up in a very traditional home where you know, in a faith-based home. And so I was really conflicted with, okay, if we look at mental illness as a true disease, as a true illness, like cancer, diabetes, any other horrible physical affliction,
sure,
why do we treat mental illness? We shouldn't treat mental illness any differently. So
I think it's because it doesn't have a physical component. I think that's our limit. I think if someone has a broken arm, we can physically see that broken arm, and we can say it is broken right here. But the mental illness, we can't see it, and we don't know all of the many places that it is broken. So then we kind of just go, I don't know.
I think that's what a lot of people say, well, why did you stay as long as you did? Well, again, that was my thinking, that if this is truly an illness and he needs medical help, I wouldn't abandon my family. I wouldn't abandon my spouse if he had cancer or, you know, some other terminal, you know, congestive heart failure or something. I wouldn't abandon him for that. So why would I leave him? You know, I wanted to believe that with the right doctors, the right medicine, this was a hiccup in our marriage, and he could get the right treatment.
And he would get better.
We could put all the pieces of her family back together. So about 3 months before the shooting, it was unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time he got physical with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabbed me. I was returning from a trip with our oldest son, and I was getting ready to take the kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabbed me by the shirt collar and threw me around the closet, and my kids intervened. I filed a protective order. I was surprised that it never happened, especially and with the kids there.
That's what I hate. Pause. I hate that you were hurt. And I think even more that these children saw their father in that way, because no one can ever take that memory of who, and they're forming up who they think he is. And when you're that young, you have a hard time distinguishing yourself from your parents. That's why when someone insults your mother on the playground, it's like they're saying it about you. So what I really hate is that your children in their formative, malleable, safe, and soft years saw their father behave like that too. I'm so sorry.
So, yeah, thank you for that. So I filed a protective order. He was arrested. He got served. He got served the protective order.
And you're still living in the same house with each other?
At that moment, we were. Now, we had a home and we had a condo in our town. Again, we owned real estate, so we had quite a bit of inventory of properties. So after he was arrested and he served a couple of days of jail time, he went to live in one of our condo. And as is such a storybook case, he blew through the protective order over and over. I'd filed police reports, and there was really not a whole lot that could be done to enforce it over the long run. So he would make promises to get better. And I think back to your original question, the 2 weeks before his death, I thought I saw glimpses of him really wanting to try. My whole thing was, I'm not going to divorce you. I'm giving you a 3-month window to show your children and your wife that you can get your act together, that you can be a good husband and a good father, and you get off all the meds that you're on. You go see a reputable psychiatrist that
that's not the private practice.
That's not the private practice.
Right after Grey's Anatomy.
Right. And we had a referral to a great doctor, a great one. And so I started to see glimpses of hope. The night before the shooting, again, back to your original question, he went to our oldest son's basketball game, which never happened. He never attended the children's sporting events. There was always an excuse for work, or he had a meeting, or there was always something business related. So the fact that he was at his son's basketball game was something new. And then we went out for dinner. We went out for sushi. And he was so not a sushi man. He was a steak and potatoes man. So, but he knew I liked it. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe this man is trying.
Oh, yeah.
I
would have felt that too.
Yeah. So it was very uncharacteristic of his normal behavior.
And he's being sweet and kind to you.
For the most part, yes. And he'd been on the phone, and he had been talking. He'd called everybody. He called his father. He called friends from high school. I remember him always being on the phone the
days leading up to it.
So the next morning, we were prepared to go to my oldest son's regional basketball game. They were now in the tournament. And it was in Illinois, and it was February, and it was ugly and gray day. It was one of those days where there was a threat of black ice. We had to drive to the next town about 40 minutes away. And
I'm a grandma. I'll drive like 3 miles an hour. You'll hate me.
Do I want to, there's going to be another basketball game. Do I really want to, load all the kids up, drive, an hour away, unload them and all this sketchy weather. And so the last minute, I decided not to go. And my daughter and I went and got her nails done. We ran some errands. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to the house to make the kids a late afternoon snack, the other three. And prior to that, I'd been in our office, and my husband was in the office as well, and he was acting a little strange. But I said, I'm going home. I'm fixing the kids a snack. Get your stuff, get your act together, and, you know, just be normal in front of the kids, you know.
And when you say he was acting strange, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I remember him standing against the wall and just staring into like space.
Nothingness.
Like, just very odd behavior. And I'm like, snap out of it. What is going on with you? And over the course of years of managing this, there were a lot of times when I think you become, when you manage this for an extended period of time, you sort of become detached. So there were a lot of times Gabe would act out where I thought it was nothing more than a cry for attention. And being able to discern that, you just don't know. You lose that ability. So
this is what I'm hearing. You know, there's so many things coming at you that are unknown and strange and persistent. You're trying to manage a monster, like, you know, like you don't know what the monster's going to do. So the reason why I want to stress that is that I know that there are people who are in situations similar, and there are a lot of things coming at them that they don't know how to handle. So you try to latch onto the one thing that you think you kind of can control. So can you act right when the kids get here? Because you've been dealing with wacky-do, crazy behavior for years. So you don't even know. You trying to manage it is crazy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you become, I think, well, for me, I became very almost parental. Like I would,
yes, of course,
treat him like I treat my children. Okay, get it together. We've got this meeting. Get it together. You got to talk to the bankers. Get it together. We've got this event with the kids. And that became my normal. So anyhow, I went home. He called me into the bedroom and he said, he said there was something he wanted. Let me back up. We had a conversation, same conversation we had every day. Am I going to leave him? Am I not going to leave him? What's going to happen to the kids? I'm like, just do what you're supposed to do. Get help, get your act together, and we will figure it out. So we had that conversation. And then I remember him leaving the kitchen area and coming back in and saying, there's something I want to talk to you about, but not in front of the children. So,
which seems rather normal.
It wasn't anything unusual. And I remember being very exasperated, going, God, we just had this conversation. What on earth now? Can I fix the kids a flipping sandwich? I mean, I was in my head, that's where I was.
That's real. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I was just like, again. So I followed him to our bedroom, and he was ahead of me. And when we got to the bedroom, you know, down the hallway to the bedroom, he turned to face me, and he always wore hooded sweatshirts with a front pocket. And he pulled something out of his front pocket, and I soon realized it was a handgun. And I remember screaming, and I remember saying, what are you doing with this? And he had one hidden somewhere in the house, and he went to go get it. And somehow he grabbed me by the arm and shoved me into the back of our closet, our walk-in closet. And he shot me. The first bullet went into my left foot. And I remember saying, oh my God, you just effing shot me. Like I was like, what just happened?
Right.
And it was in my left foot. It went in like, if this is my foot, it went in my like pinky toe and exited through the arch of my foot.
Oh.
And then the very next thing happened. The next thing I remember was that I collapsed face down, nose buried in the carpet. I'd been shot, and I didn't realize that I'd been shot. It happened so fast. That bullet went through my right femur. It blew out about 1.5 inches of my femur and grazed my femoral artery. And again, I didn't even have the capacity to process that I'd been shot again. I was just like, how did I end up on the floor? And then the third bullet went through my right hip and exited my groin. I mean, I was already face down then. There was no need for that. I mean, I've got my own internal word for that shot. But
yeah.
the next thing, I didn't move. I was pretty stunned at that point. And like,
do you feel it? Do you
no,
feel
no,
pain in that
no,
moment?
no, no. No. It was so sudden. I didn't have time to feel it. I think I was trying to figure out how I got on the floor face down.
Wow.
What was going on?
Wow.
I remember hearing him mess with the gun, like cock the gun, check the chamber, do whatever he was doing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, he's going to shoot me in the back of the head. I really remember that fear.
Oh God, I am so sorry you had that experience. That's horrible. It's horrible. I know it's a part of your story, but I want you to know that is horrible, and you should have never had that experience ever. Nobody.
Sadly, nobody should, but it happens all the time. And so I was afraid I was gonna die, honestly. And the next thing that I know was I heard the gun go off, and he fell next to me. So what had happened was he put the gun in his mouth, fired, and collapsed and died next to me. And I heard him die. And
you knew that's what you were hearing.
I knew it. Yes, knew it. Exactly. So the kids, when I guess I knew I was safe because he wasn't going to hurt me anymore, I called, well, let me back up. I tried to lift my body up with my elbows and move forward because my cell phone had fallen. And I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. And at that point, I mean, my immediate thought was I need to protect my children from what they might see if they wandered back here. And I knew I was seriously injured, so I knew I needed help right away. So when I couldn't move, I knew I was in trouble, and I started to call for help. And my then 6-year-old daughter ran down the hallway and found my cell phone and brought it to me to call 911 for help. She stepped over her dad's body.
How old is she again? How old is she again?
6. My then 14-year-old son heard me cry for help. And again, he was aware enough to know that it was we were in a very volatile home.
Of course he was. To be honest, I'm a child of bad marriage. Your 6-year-old was aware of it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're aware of it when you're very young.
Right.
Keep going.
So my 14-year-old called 911 on the house phone. So the two of them saved my life. I mean, Jason, when I got to the 911 dispatcher, they told me that my 14-year-old, there was another child already on, and help was on the way. So it took about 15 minutes for them to find me, for them to get to the house and find me. They got the children out of the house first. And then they secured the scene. You know, they remember all the details of that, and they got the paramedics to me. And they transported me to the hospital. I was later told that I had about 1/3 of my blood in my body when I got into the ER. I read my medical report, and I think I had transfusions of over 2 liters of blood. Estimated blood loss was 2 liters, and I think the human body has about 4 to 5 liters. So, you know, I was in
half of your blood supply.
Yeah, I was in really bad shape. So I was in the hospital for a month. Just
to pause real quick, I just want people to know this, because I mean, it's evident from your story, but when all of those gunshots went off, did your children hear those gunshots?
No, they did not.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes. I mean,
isn't that amazing?
They were in the other part of the house in the family room watching, I don't know, Cartoon Network or something, and they didn't. And I am so thankful they didn't.
Me too.
Like, I've asked them, and they don't remember hearing that at all. They remember hearing me scream.
Interesting.
They don't remember me screaming with their father.
Huh. You know, the reason why I wanted to ask this question is because I think a lot of times we think a lot of our stories in our head are ensconced in movies, right? So
Right.
like when the bad guy looks like the bad guy, when the gun goes off, we all hear it. I want people to understand that this woman is in the middle of her life, dealing with a persistent mental health issue in her husband, being the best mom she knows how to be, being the best caregiver and wife she knows how to be. And in this space of going to have a conversation in her house, she is shot multiple times and her husband commits suicide over her body. And the kids don't even hear the bullets. I think I just needed to take it out of Hollywood of like the bang, 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 and know that this stuff can happen. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I appreciate you doing that because one of the things I talk about with my children, with, you know, some of the people you and I both know together,
Mm-hmm.
is that this is just my normal. So
Mm-hmm.
when it becomes your normal, you're very detached from it. So you kind of lose that perspective.
Sure.
So you putting it in, you know, saying it that way gives it a different context that when you're living it, you just can't have, you don't have it,
Right.
you know.
Right.
You almost become or I've almost become irreverent and cavalier, and it's
Mm-hmm.
part of its self-preservation, I think.
Sure. Sure.
But that's just part of the process, which
And I
is
think
an
also
interesting journey.
when things are your normal,
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize how not normal it is. Like on a
Right.
lighter kind of topic. So my
Sure.
best girlfriend, I've known her since I was 20. She's the child of like two missionaries, and on both sides of her family, you know, it's like missionaries, pastors, you know,
Right.
2 generations deep. So her father, needless to say, we call him the bishop as a very funny joke because he's the most
Mm-hmm.
laid back, down to earth guy in the world. But he's pretty frugal, so frugal that he put 2 kids through college, private college, debt free. I mean, this guy's so frugal.
Wow.
So she grew up in Amsterdam and originally from the DC area. But when they would go to the movie theaters, it would be like, okay, who has the sodas? Who has the candy? And who has the popcorn? Like they would like go to the movies with all this stuff in their bags. The reason why I'm telling you this is this was her norm.
Right.
So I remember
Right.
when I met her in college, we were like one night, all of us girls going to movies. And I remember Joy being like, okay, so who has the candy? And we're like, who has the candy? The candy's at the movie theaters. But that was her normal. So
Right.
she didn't even know it was like not something the rest of us were contending with
Right.
because it was so normal for her. So the reason why I tell that little story that gives a little levity is because when you are in something, when it is normal to you, you lose perspective on how unique it is in the larger context of the world. You do.
And to add to that, part of my journey is I just had the 10-year anniversary of the shooting. So I'm in a totally, I'm thankful. And
yeah,
I
10 years though.
that,
wow.
I mean, I am so thankful. But one of the things that in the self-discoveries I've learned along the way is at least the pattern for me. And as I've informally shared this with other people, I think there's a truth to this, is that think of a bell curve. As long as it takes you, the amount of time it takes you to get to that peak. So the crazy in my household with the mental illness and the erratic behavior, and it started very gradually.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's one thing that happened and then that becomes the new normal and something else happens. So the changes are very incremental. So once you get to that peak, and in my particular situation, the peak was the shooting, it takes almost the same amount of time to come back down.
Ooh, that's a good point. That is a good point. And you already laid up the time that you're like 8.5 years, things were like wacky-do and getting crazier and crazier. So it doesn't just, I think it's so powerful what you're saying. It doesn't just write itself overnight.
No. And I don't think I felt comfortable in my own skin, confident. I mean, I was going through the motions and doing what I needed to do to take care of my children and my family and start a new life and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I really felt that confident power until about 2 or 3 years ago, which totally makes sense with that bell curve analogy. Totally makes sense with that.
So what do you think? There's two things I want to ask you.
Sure.
One is, why do you think you never thought that he would hurt you? Why do you think you never thought that? Because that's not a unique thing that I've heard when I've spoken to women on this particular topic over the years. A lot of women are like, I just never thought he was going to kill me. I just never thought he was going to hurt me, when their behavior had indicated cruelty and certainly instability. Why do you think you thought he is never going to hurt me?
I put a lot of thought into this, and I don't have the magic answer.
That's all right. I just want to hear your process.
For me, is I think I spoke to the fact that I was in it to fix it, and I'm a fixer. You know, I'm kind of, you know, as a lot of women are, and a lot of, you know, strong women are. You know, and we were married for 22 years. We were together for 25. So all along, I convinced myself that this was a hiccup in our marriage. Like, you know, you have these long 50, 60-year-old marriages, and this is just a hiccup that a lot of these wonderful love stories, these wonderful marriages, you know, have to go through. So I wanted it to get back. I wanted to get back to where we were, or at least come out of this with our family intact. So that's one.
Yeah. So you were married to a result. You were married to a resolution in your head of how this was going to look.
Partly, not totally, but I mean, it was a commitment.
I get it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think the other piece of that, though, is when you partner or you get into a relationship with somebody that ends up doing something so heinous, or is cruel or erratic or mean, or just does a really horrific act. For me, there was a lot of self-doubt that added layers to all of the trauma.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, what's wrong with my internal compass that I would pick somebody that could do something so terrible? And I think
that is powerful. I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that particular insecurity is what keeps a lot of women in that situation, and making them think that it's never going to happen to them. Because there comes a point where you're like, what does this say of me if this is right? And I'm so glad you're saying that, because what it says of you is that you're a human being, and we only know what we know, and none of us know the future. It doesn't say anything of you that's poor, but it's so important, because I think that particular thing is what people struggle with, and they have to make it right. And so a part of making it right is you stay and you keep fixing.
You do, and I also think it's such it's incomprehensible. Like, it's something, when I was in the depth of all of the craziness and the just I always said, if I wrote a book, it'd be called Managing Crazy, because that's really what I was doing. At that time.
It sounds like it.
Really what was my life. That it you don't have the bandwidth to look at anything objectively, because you're getting through every day. You wake up and you're like, okay, can I get through this day without a fight, with peace? Can I get the children? I mean, we had 4 children in 4 travel sports, plus school, plus the business. And Gabe didn't really help do a whole lot. And his mother lived with us a good part of that time. I mean, she lived with us for up to 2 years at one point. And there's so much in a day. There's just so much that I didn't have the bandwidth to process anything else. Now, I think that was part of Gabe's strategy, so that I didn't pay attention to him in a lot of things. Part of the story is he left us virtually penniless. He left us with $25 million of debt on the real estate. Now,
wow. Pause.
Yeah.
That's like an amount that most people won't ever even touch in their lives. And
He
he left
borrowed
you $25 million in debt.
$25 million of debt. We lost everything. He'd refinanced the house. It was underwater. He had taken my name off of virtually all the assets.
What was he doing with this money? What was he doing?
He day traded a $5 million stock account down to zero behind my back. He borrowed against his life insurance. So there was nothing but like $70,000 left for us.
Oh my God.
So part of the crazy was that I was so busy.
Oh my gosh.
That I couldn't, and I trusted him with now, I'm a financial person. That's part of my story. I'm a CPA, and I've done personal financial planning and have my securities license. And, I'm, I kind of get that world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing. People would say, well, if you're so smart and you have all of this, how could he leave you with nothing? Well,
people literally come at you with that kind of questioning.
In a roundabout way. I mean,
that's insulting. That's insulting. And I'm sorry to hear that. That's insulting.
But it's a normal question. Like, I would ask the same thing if I wasn't in this. I
don't know if that's a normal question to ask somebody. How could you know? Because that's very judgmental. It's like, you do not know all the nuances of what goes on. And what we're clearly learning from your story too is whatever you're in, it becomes your normal. Right? You are ensconced in that normal, and that normal might be very different than my normal. Right. So I should never come at you and go like, how did you do that? Because maybe if I had the same set of crazy steps in my life, maybe I would be making the same exact decision. So no, I don't think that is a normal question.
Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I learned in this process, and this was part of the contention between us, is that if my husband took a brokerage account, say with Charles Schwab, mm-hmm. that I had access to, but it was just in his name, but I could always see it. And all of a sudden he took that online. I had no access to that anymore.
Oh, God.
So that's one thing, even if you're married. And I used to do our tax returns. So on a tax return, when you get your tax statements at the end of the year, you don't see account values. Mm-mm. You just see the trade, you see the interest earned, the dividends. So there were all of these things that I kind of, again, I probably would have been that judgy person.
That's the gift of this. Life. Yeah, but that's the gift of this, is because you're not going to be that to somebody else on their story. And that's a wonderful thing.
Right. And so part of me sharing this is to kind of explain those nuances of how things got so bad and so crazy. And it
reminds me of the frog in the hot water. Like when people talk about, you put the frog in the pot, a normal temperature water, you put it on the stove, and you slowly heat that water up. The frog will not jump out until it's dead.
Right.
Because it's changed gradually.
Right.
And maybe any of us in that same situation would be that frog.
Right. What I did know is that and let me just take a step back. When you asked me, about him hurting me, if I ever had a fear, I think people around me had that fear, but I didn't.
But you didn't.
And I would say, no, that's not going to happen. He'd never do that. He always says I'm a great mom. I keep
going back to that compass thing too, right? Because you're not a person who's chosen someone who's going to murder them.
Kill me. Right. Mm-hmm. So and to that point, when I did ask for help, I think, and this is my theory now, people around me had a hard time taking me seriously because they had seen it in the past, or they saw it.
And they'd grown jaded. They'd grown jaded.
Call like, okay, we've been telling her this, but is she seriously need help or not? Like, I didn't get how dire my situation was when I was in it. And then when I needed help and I cried for help, I think because my community saw it or saw glimpses of it, they didn't take me seriously enough. That's my own perception.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that.
Other women that think they're going to manage it, and then when they go try to get help or get, tap into resources available, and they're not there. For example, the police, some of my husband's close friends, some of my close friends, not all, but there were certainly some. I had a person say to me, and he was a very close friend of ours for years. He was actually an attorney. And he said, people, and this was like a couple years after the shooting. I mean, I could handle this conversation at this point. He said, people either thought I knew how bad my husband was, or I was just stupid. I either knew and ignored all the things he was doing, or I just was stupid. And he goes, and I know you're not a stupid woman. So, but he said, to us from the outside looking in as to what was going on with me and the children and him, we just didn't get it.
Or just coping mechanism. That's hard to hear. I don't know if
I appreciate him saying, like I said, he's a dear, dear friend.
Yeah.
Somebody I truly respect. And,
yeah. But that's hard to hear.
But having somebody tell me that gave me shed a whole new light on kind of how these things kind of grow and get out of hand when there's, when people don't get help.
It also challenges me as a person who may love, not just a woman who's in that situation, but those of us who love people who may be in those situations, how it doesn't matter how bad it looks. Don't grow jaded in their cry for help. We have to be intentional about not growing jaded in people's cries for help. Even if we feel like they should have asked for help 5 miles down the road, if they're asking for help today, the challenge of what you just shared tells me, Shay, step up, recognize the help that's needed, and you be there without judgment. You be there with love.
True. Right. Look, I don't know why I lived.
To tell this story. To tell this story and to save people's lives. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding.
I am.
This is going to kick us off in a minute, but I'm going to come right back. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'm very aware that people die every day of injuries far less than mine. And the fact that I lived is, I don't take that lightly. I really don't, and that's a heavy burden. That's a heavy burden when, you hear and you see stories of people that leave us and, the serious of their injury is not of the same magnitude that I experienced. And that's a lot. It can be a lot. So
Brioni just actually said a really good point. She said she's probably really sure that you knew the real him, and that all of his behavior was a result of his deeply medicated and also mental illness. So there was a part of you that just wanted to dig in for the real him. I think that's a great point, Brioni. Thank you for that.
Articulated very well. Very, very well.
Yeah. So what do you think? You said, in the last, I almost don't even want to ask the question because literally it's going to kick us, because I got on at 10:56 and at 10:57, and it will kick us off at 11:57, which is in exactly like 30 seconds. I'm going to come right back here. I just need you to come right on back and I will invite you back. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.